Well, welcome to Heartistry. This is Farah, Yasmeen, Shaikh, and I'm really thrilled to have, of course, another wonderful conversation. But, this particular guest has been a long time coming, and I'm just thrilled to have the chance to finally be in conversation. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Zainab Jeewanjee to Heartistry.
Thank you, Farah. It's so nice to be here. We've known each other a long time, but to see you on a podcast, another level of fun.
Likewise, and a little context to how we have. I feel like there's various ways that we have intersected here and there. I would say most recently, in recent years, it's been through this wonderful organization that I'm associated with. You're much more deeply entrenched, as you know. My father and even my mother have been involved. My father very deeply so with the Citizens Foundation, often referred to as TCF, which is all about really education in Pakistan and improving the systems and building schools and programming and all of that. And you have been so beautifully active here in the Bay Area, specifically emceeing their events and all the things, promoting, advocating. And so, yeah, I love that we have that crossover, to say the least.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. You come across people in your life and you never know when you meet them again. And I knew your father, who I like to say in my millennial speak is one of the OGs of the Citizens Foundation. And the foundation itself is one of the OGs of all nonprofits in Asia, not just Pakistan. And so, to cross paths with you this many years later, knowing your dad 20, years ago, God rest his soul. It's such a full circle moment,
Yeah.
which I love because I really feel like this is also just a meeting of the minds. And so again, life takes you in these unexpected ways, and it's so nice to cross paths with people you have a generational connection with, because I guess our
Yeah.
fathers also knew each
Yep.
other in Karachi, like way before we
Yeah.
were born, which is wild because
Yeah.
Karachi's a mega city and Silicon Valley's a mega city. So you never know.
Totally. It is. It's a beautiful small world. And I think exactly to your point, like-minded, like similar minds and hearts always tend to find each other. And so, yes. And I just know my father would love that we have deepened our connection as of late too, because I know he thought the world of you. So,
Absolutely.
well, there is so much we're going to touch on in this conversation. But one of the things I really love is that I get to really get to know you. And with that said, I'd love to hear a little bit about your personal family history, your origin story, if you will. So, anything you'd like to share, and eventually that will lead us to the present.
Yeah, no, that's very kind of you to ask. I think everybody, no matter where you are in life, whether you're a teenager, whether you're what is it, a Gen Z or an older millennial like me, everyone has a story. So it's not really defined by time, right? We've all
Yeah.
got the benefit of hindsight. We've all got our own unique experiences, and some generations share some of those experiences. My origin story really kind of, it begins, I'd say, just prior to becoming a mom, because things really
Mm,
changed for me after
mm,
becoming a mom. But prior to becoming a mom, I'm in graduate school, peak performance condition, doing my yoga, living my best life
yeah.
out in Denver, living the dream. I always wanted to study international relations. And then I meet the man of my dreams, who happens to be in the
Mm,
Silicon Valley. And I'm jetting back and forth between the Silicon Valley and Denver and, attending all these classes. And I get a job offer from a very cool agency I won't name in DC, and I'm at a crossroads. And I say,
huh,
well, I love this man and I love, the Bay Area, but I could also go to DC and make a really fabulous career here. And I was at a crossroads, and I
ah,
made the decision to come back to the Bay Area.
mm,
I think that's where my origin story starts, because I'm really now an adult and I've graduated from school and
yeah.
everything and starting this next chapter in my life. And it was fantastic. You have the benefit of hindsight and you never know how the other way is going to turn out, but
True.
the
Sliding
benefit.
doors, as they say, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's a great 90s movie too, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I'd say that's where it starts. And I think the biggest thing, regardless of anyone's story, we all have different paths. You look at things with optimism, even the
Mm,
setbacks, right? Because, one person might look at, well, I could have gone to DC and done this, or, I could have taken this door. But with the benefit of hindsight, even despite, whatever setbacks happen or don't happen,
Yeah.
Everything kind of works out. And I think if you lead with optimism, there's no way it can't, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
that's a little bit about my background. What I do now is, and this kind of is part of the origin story. I was at
Yeah.
another crossroads where I didn't take this job in DC, living my best life, coming back here, and my father looks at me, and he's in the middle of peak season with, the biggest part of our company's division, and we have massive turnover where all the leads, all our managers just leave. And my dad's like, "What am I going to do? This is a big part
Hmm.
of our business." And I look at my dad, and I had other jobs lined up. One was at Twitter, some really cool stuff, and I was like, "Dad, no worries, I got this." And I know this will resonate with you because you're, you just who you are with Amjad uncle and everything, and very close.
Yeah.
And it's like, Dad, I got this, no worries. And so I didn't got this. I looked at the screen, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But got
Huh.
that 2012 and I picked it up and yada yada yada. Fast forward to 2025. In between all that, built a pretty cool division, had a small little exit, and you just led with optimism and it all kind of worked out. So it was pretty
There you
fantastic.
go. Amazing. Let's go ahead. We'll take our first pause here. Welcome back to Heartistry. This is Farah Yasmeen Shaikh, and today we are in conversation with Zainab Jeewanjee and hearing a little bit about your background. And I actually really love that, how the origin story can actually have various starting points, right? And it is that moment when we sort of feel like not only we're finding ourselves, but our true self and the self that we want to put out there, both internally and externally, starts really revealing itself. And so I really appreciate that you said it was really into adulthood that happened for you. So you mentioned you're back here in the Silicon Valley, and you were originally also you were born here, correct?
Absolutely. So I was born
Yeah.
in Karachi, but I came
Okay.
here to Farah when I was like 2. So,
Okay.
I don't remember being there as a baby, but my parents are hardcore Karachiites. And so they took us back
Yeah.
every summer. And so you
Mm.
put me in Karachi now, and I haven't driven, but I could tell a driver and navigate that city myself. I could go where I
Yeah.
need to go. So
Yeah.
a city that's dear to my heart.
Yes. Oh, that resonates as well. I never had I was not born there, but in recent years going, and my goodness, Karachi is really, there's something magical. There's
Yes.
really something
Is it?
magical.
It's a mega city. A lot of people don't realize that. It's one of the biggest cities. I think it's in the top 10 in the world. And I love the energy.
Yeah.
You read the news stories and stuff, but the energy in Karachi
Yeah.
is second to none. And when you think about, even from an anthropological lens, like what
Mm,
makes a culture? Language, food, and that energy. Karachi's second to none. I gotta tell you, the best food in the world,
100%.
right?
And
So,
I've recently been having this conversation a handful of times with folks, like just even comparing cities. I mean, I do love
mhm.
Lahore. I've been to Islamabad a handful of times and love it. I don't tend to go there as frequently. But there's just something about not just the city, but it's the people in
Yeah.
Karachi. And then there was this sort of, I remember we were talking, well, is it, the coastal vibe? And I mean, it could be, you can't
Yeah.
really separate any of the factors. So whatever it is, it's a magnet like no other. So,
100%, 100%.
yeah.
We have offices in Lahore, which I love because
Okay.
my husband's a Karachiite, but he swears like Lahore is the best place ever. We got to go there. And so that's on my, so
Wow.
funny how like you have a bucket list that's related to your work, but I'm lucky enough to say that it's to visit this extraordinary team that I've built out in the past 10 years in Pakistan. And so we'll get to hopefully go
Amazing.
to Lahore one day. So that'll be fun too.
Yeah. Well, Zainab, you're a full-time mom. You have a full-time career. And yet somehow we spoke a little bit about TCF and you find these ways to carve out time, energy. And I know that that's not literally time. I mean, it
Yeah.
is, yes, mental and physical time and energy, but it's also really the heart centered work that comes along with being involved in other initiatives, endeavors, supporting other organizations and whatnot.
Yeah.
again, we touched on TCF, and I actually had Aisha on at one point too. And so hopefully our listeners learned a little bit about that phenomenal organization there. But you're also involved with Open Silicon Valley. Can you talk a little bit about that organization? And then, of course, what is coming up in the very near future?
I would love to. Thank you for asking. So, Open Silicon Valley is probably the world premier organization of Pakistani entrepreneurs and professionals. There's 17 chapters between California and Pakistan and everything in between, because that's a full circle, literal 360 around the globe. 17 chapters. The Silicon Valley chapter right here in the Bay Area is actually the largest and probably the most vibrant. And that's, naturally because we're an entrepreneurial Bay Area culture. That's what we are. And so, I'm so proud to be involved with the organization. I probably got involved when I was just a kid back in the early 2000s. Yeah, crazy. Handing out flyers at a booth for our company while my dad was, speaking or something. And I was just a little kid handing out flyers. Fast forward again, I volunteered to help out year after year for women's conferences, eventually became a charter member a few years ago, and this year was asked to chair their annual women's conference. And this is something dear to my heart because I have been a card-carrying feminist, very proud to say that, since high school when I had my first women in literature class. That I was sold. I was sold that day. And as a card-carrying feminist, I looked at this organization I've seen in the past 25 years who do tremendous work for it. You have founders, you have entrepreneurs, you have professionals all coming together under very progressive, very open-minded, very vibrant professional community. And, I saw the Women's Forum happening each year, and I thought, it's 2025. Let's shake things up a bit. And I hearkened back to everything I had learned in women's studies, and nothing excited me more than getting this whole community in the room together to listen to some of the most phenomenal female speakers I could gather for 8 hours from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And this community rallied. And I am so proud that this Pakistani community of, some of the best, well-heeled, professional and educated folks came together to rally around this cause. And so we're doing a forum on May 10th at the iconic Computer History Museum, which I'm super excited about. Invite everyone to join. It's going to be a day of, professional development, keynotes, workshops, and my personal favorite, I love all that. There's a halwa puri breakfast in the morning.
Awesome.
It's a Pakistani organization. We are nothing if not hospitable, Farah.
Love it. Love it. So Zainab, for those who don't know, OPEN, what does it stand for?
The Organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs Network.
Beautiful. And, I without knowing that backstory, exactly how you shared it with us around, hey, I want to shake things up this year. I will say that from the optics, from my perspective, I have frankly always felt like, okay, yeah, this is great, but it felt very male dominated. Yeah. And so it is awesome to see this lineup that you've helped to put together. And can you talk a little bit, whether it's about some of the key individuals, again, some of the topics, some of the highlights that folks can expect?
Absolutely. So, when I thought about showcasing women speakers for everyone, a male audience, a female, just everyone, a totally inclusive audience, I thought, let's focus on women at the top of their industries, at the top of their game. We've got 3 keynotes, Farah, which is phenomenal for a one-day conference. They're all CEOs or presidents of major organizations. The first keynote in the morning is Dr. Anita Zaidi, who is president of nothing less than gender equality at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which we all know gender equality is one of their biggest divisions. So she's speaking in the morning on, leadership that lasts. How do you create a legacy with impact for the future? Because when we think about a CEO and we think about the Silicon Valley, we think of bottom line and we think of transactional, like how much money can I make quickly? Well, Dr. Anita Zaidi she deals in impact, gender equality for the Gates Foundation, right? So she's going to talk about How do you do that? How do you lead? Now, you've also got a bottom line and other things, but how do you do that with
Yeah.
impact as your main focus? We've got another CEO in the afternoon, Seba Ali. She is CEO of Kip Hartwood Academy in Texas. They're a great organization doing work all across America, serving very similar to TCF in the sense that they also serve, different communities in the educational space.
Mm.
And then, of course, we are an entrepreneurial organization, and we've got a very big heavyweight, Sahana Sarma, coming in for another keynote. And she is go-to-market VP at Databricks, formerly a senior person at Google Cloud, and we are so excited to have her. So lots of phenomenal speakers, and
Yeah.
it's going to bring so much fulfillment to my heart to see everyone come together to listen to women for a whole day of just these phenomenal CEOs and leaders and change makers. So super excited.
Yeah. And you mentioned these three individuals who are giving a keynote, and you've got panels, and I love it. There are folks on there. I just recently, we haven't had a chance to share his episode just yet, but I just had a conversation with Muhammad Joyo of Elaichi, and I see that you've got Zainab Joyo on there. I see that you have also Mariam Ishtiaq,
Mhm.
Sadia Khan. I mean, people who are, the folks you mentioned, phenomenal, no doubt, but they're obviously many of them from very large institutions, to say the least. But even for somebody such as myself, who runs a nonprofit, a small business at that, there's access points both to be inspired by folks who've been in it and doing it on a larger scale, so to speak, as well as people who are doing it in like more the creative, artistic,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial spaces as well. And I love that range.
Yeah. Well, I love that you love that because this is the thing right here. That's the validation I need. No, and you're absolutely right because when you hear something like Open Silicon Valley, you hear the word entrepreneur in the title, but we're so
Right.
much more than just entrepreneurs. Not to say that those aren't fantastic, they have their place, but as women or men, we all wear different hats. We have different roles. At some point we might be an entrepreneur, but at some point we just might be an employee somewhere, and that's fantastic, and you can excel at that. And then also, the beauty of the magic that happens that I think when you bring a bunch of women together to speak and to be heard from is women have a superpower of wearing multiple hats at once. We
Yeah.
are very good at that. And the irony
100%.
is, right? And in the workplace, whether it's male dominated, which most are, or not, you
Yeah.
should be able to wear multiple caps. That's what's going to help you excel. And women naturally know how to do that because we're moms or sisters or daughters, whatever we are, those are big roles. And then we're also professionals, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
going to be a fantastic day because all the women that we've put together, I mean, they're all rock stars. So I'm excited.
Welcome back to Heartistry. This is Farah, and we are chatting today with Zainab Jeewanjee and hearing about the upcoming. Would you refer to it as a conference?
Yes,
The
absolutely.
upcoming conference with Open, and this year's title theme. You talked a lot about the intention and vision. The name is Synergy. How did you come up with that name?
So I love that you asked that. Thank you. So synergy to me means everything coming together all at once, sort of in unison. And I love the idea of unison, right? So, innovation, leadership, but also balance. In 2025, there's no reason we can't have all of it. We can be innovative, we can find balance, and we can also lead, and we should. All of us as people, we're in an age of AI, and that's scary, but it's exciting all at once. And we should all be on the cutting edge of doing what's right for us as people, right? Harnessing that innovation, becoming leaders, but also not losing that focus and balance. And so, what I've put together for Synergy is people who are at the cross section of all those things, right? They're leading, they're innovators in their industry, but we've got a yoga session, we've got a mind
Yeah.
coach coming, which I love how many conferences will also do.
Right.
But we've got a mind coach who's going to teach you about deep focus. And as a professional, as a high achiever, how do you get to that point where you can kind of block stuff out and, focus solely on one thing going on, even when your phone is buzzing
Yeah.
or, your son is in the other room or your dog wants to play. Like, how do you focus? How do you do that? And I think especially in the Silicon Valley, but really the whole world right now, everyone could use more balance. And so I wanted to expand what a conference meant. It's not
Mm.
just about entrepreneurship. It's not just about the hard-hitting business sense. It's about the whole professional. And so the tagline really is synergy, innovation, leadership, balance, the complete professional. So that's where I went with that.
I love that. And we're certainly going to keep chatting about this, but I want to make sure we plug. How can folks find out more about the conference?
So yeah, glad that you asked. There is a website where you can check out the full lineup of speakers, the full day's agenda. You can register. There are student tickets, and I know we have a tax day special going on right now. Tariffs and taxes got you down. Well, we got your back, kind of
Oh,
thing. So
love
no,
it.
but yeah, we'll give you a link to the website. Would love for everyone to join us. It's going to be a really fantastic day.
And kids ages 7 and up.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about that. I saw that option there. Yeah.
Okay, so I could not call this a women-led conference, right? If I did not provide the moms and dads out there an opportunity to come enjoy the conference, right? So
Yeah.
we have not just babysitting, we'll have some babysitting, but we've got children. Actually, we've got some high schoolers, and we've got a 10-year-old leading a STEM session for kids. So kids 7 to 12 can come learn about civil engineering through Legos and also learn how to present. They're going to have confidence building workshops and
Yeah.
workshops on Lego. And then even an actual really cool artist, Aisha Samdani's coming in and
Awesome.
and she's going to lead with some high schoolers, a whole arts and crafts session and also work on confidence building, how to present your art. So, that was really important to me. And it's a way to make sure that this is inclusive and we don't want to exclude anyone. This is a conference for everyone.
Of course, the arts component really stood out to me when
Of
I
course.
saw that. And I mean, again, Zainab, I think I just really, really want to shout out sort of well-rounded feels almost too generic, but just the thoughtfulness that has gone into this. Really, you're really not just making it a space where multiple people can feel welcome. And yes, I saw you recently at a mutual friend, Mona's iftar gathering, and you were telling me more about your involvement. But I will be very honest that I've known about Open for years, but based on the space that I occupy professionally, as much as culturally and in the community I feel connected, I didn't always know or feel that it was for me. And I'm lucky enough to have had that conversation. So that in and of itself was dispelled through that. But I hope through this conversation we're having, certainly me talking more about it, to dispel it for others. But I just really feel that you've done a phenomenal job making it more inclusive. Now, what about that said, talking about inclusivity? Of course, we are rightly so, like I do here on Heartistry. I think you and I, as we talked about our love for Karachi and pretty much all things Pakistan, notice my earrings are Pakistan.
I love,
Yes.
is that written? Does it say, it's the map.
It's the
Oh
map.
my
Yep.
God.
Thank you, Kadi.
You are iconic, let me just say.
um, but the point being is that, one of the things I love doing through this platform of Heartistry is inviting really any and everybody who are bringing a passion, compassion, and commitment to what they're doing. Majority of my guests tend to be South Asian, again, not exclusively so. And I am very intentional about diversifying those voices and bringing in more Pakistani representation, whether it's folks living in Pakistan, yeah, or they're the diaspora like myself. But the point is, I also hope that people outside of that demographic are listening.
Yeah.
So coming back to Synergy and the upcoming conference, with the lineup that it is, knowing pretty certain that majority of the folks there will be Pakistani of whatever generation. However, I'd love for you to touch on, I imagine you want this to be welcome to any and everybody. And just speaking to that in any way that you like.
Oh, 100%, Farah. So our lineup is actually, it is diverse. It's not just
I saw
Pakistan.
that.
Yeah. And that was actually very important to me because, I grew up not in Pakistan. I grew up here and I'm a Californian. My parents were actually hippies in the 70s in Karachi. So diversity, inclusion, you can say whatever you want about it in 2025, but that's just what I know.
Yeah.
When I think of putting people together, whether it's for a party at my house, my kid's birthday, or this conference that I'm putting on, it's whoever wants to come and likes the vibe and likes the energy. And so that was important to me to not just have, South Asian. I want everyone to be welcome here. And
Yeah.
so we've got a diversity in the lineup. And to be honest, Open Silicon Valley has always been that way. And I'm saying it's progressive. I don't want anyone to take that the wrong way because that can be a polarizing term, but it's not
Hmm.
to me. It's not to me at all.
Yeah.
Progressive to me means it's inclusive. Everyone's welcome. And it's just a great day. I mean, if you're a professional, you're with like-minded people. That's
Yeah.
what it is. It doesn't matter where you're from, or we have people flying in from across the country, attendees, speakers. So it's important to me that everyone be welcome.
Beautiful. And can I ask? I think I can assume the answer, but you mentioned if you're a professional, but I imagine it's also like you're aspiring to take the leap into something, transition into something new. This is also the right place for
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm glad you asked that. So, whether you're a recent graduate, maybe you're in high school, we actually
Yeah.
have a mentorship session with,
Ah,
we've got professors from Berkeley, we've got different founders and, lots of really cool luminaries from across the Silicon Valley, and actually a few from Seattle. And they're willing to help anyone. Maybe you've been out of the workforce because you're a mom and you want to get back in. I know I took a year off after my first son because I absolutely needed to.
yeah.
Maybe you were lucky enough to take a few years off, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what you wanted. And now you're, itching to start your own business or looking for a marketing gig or whatever. This is the place for you because, even if we have a lineup of a lot of heavyweights, but they're meant to inspire wherever you are, however old you are, and wherever you are at what stage in your career or personally, the stories that they're going to tell and the insights that they're going to share should resonate with everybody.
Welcome back to Heartistry. We've been having an enlightening, inspiring conversation, an exciting one that's talking about an exciting event on the horizon today with Zainab Jeewanjee. And Zainab, how are you caring for yourself as you lead up to these these final days?
That is a great question, especially from you, because you put on some of the coolest events that I've ever seen.
Oh,
So
very kind.
only you
Thank
would
you.
ask something, know that minutia of the detail of how are you holding up as chairperson. So I look up to you in many ways.
Oh,
What do I do? Probably a lot of the same things you do. And I think it's a mindset. I
yeah.
do some yoga. I love to run when I have a long day and I want to get out of being on, computer all day. I love to go for a quick run with my poodles. But I think it really is about mindset. When I wake up each morning, I'm actually excited. I'm excited for the day. If I've got 20 things to do about synergy, plus my job, plus my kids, I'm excited by it. I'm like, these are all
Yeah.
blessings in my life. These are good things. And, yes, it's physically tiring, undoubtedly. But with that mindset, you're enjoying it. You're actually having fun. And I do indeed really love my job. I work with a great team of people. The opportunity to chair this conference and bring so many people together. This is fun for me. And so you lead with optimism, you focus on the joy and it becomes easy. And that's really how I care for myself. I get out physically when I can, but I, maintain that sense of joy and purpose and it helps me through.
I love it. You're reminding me, and certainly this isn't something that I came up with, but somehow I came across it. And when you talk about mindset, sometimes the things that we have to do, we see as sort of a burden. Oh my God, I have this today. I have it. Even
Yeah.
as much as I enjoy teaching, sometimes undoubtedly there were times oh my God, I have to teach 5 hours today. And the mindset shift is, oh my goodness, I get to teach 5 hours today. I get to do this. So it's realizing whether it's, acknowledging one's health and, being able-bodied and all the things, right? But it is, I really appreciate that mindset idea. One of the things I'd love for you to touch on is when we have sort of major events like this that we've been talking about, the upcoming Open Silicon Valley conference, we're thinking about that day. and we're thinking about maybe looking at the lineup, who we hope to cross paths with, even that's attending, all of that. What I don't think we think enough about, and this is, you mentioned I put on events, and I'm often leading up to a performance, doing a big fundraising campaign, whatever it might be. But it's actually also what comes after that makes that moment in time that much more beneficial. So can you talk about that? Any tips, tricks, ideas that folks are, who are attending, even if for whatever reason they're not able to attend this, how they can go into something and really hold on to what they're absorbing that day, not just caught up in the excitement of the moment, but carry it forward, follow up, what have you.
Yeah. So, when I think about that, and this can span whether it's the amazing, artistic dance events that you do in the fundraising, or it's a business conference like I'm doing, I think about the term networking. And sometimes that gets a very business minded, very hardcore kind of, term. But to me, networking is really just relationship building, right? Yeah. And what I would love for everyone to do at any event they attend is, excuse me, look at it as an opportunity to connect with like-minded people, or even a diversity of perspectives. And, when we started this conversation, we talked about a full circle moment, how we kind of didn't know each other for a while, but I knew your dad and our dads knew each other. But, it goes back to that relationship building, or paths crossed, and you said it so beautifully. Kindred hearts find each other. Is that what you said? Something
more or less. You just said it much better than I did.
So, whether it's a business conference or a beautiful, Kathak dance performance that you're attending, and these beautiful shows that you do, these are all opportunities to connect with someone. You connect with even one person or 5 people. You don't know when you meet them again. You don't know what's going to happen 5 years or 5 days or 50 years down the road. So to me, these events are supposed to be opportunities to build relationships and connections with people.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I am personally and professionally very excited to be attending this year for the first time. And thanks to you again for making me more aware of the upcoming event and sharing with all of us today just the details and all the various aspects that we can look forward to. Again, the website that you mentioned, can you just state that where folks can find out more info?
Absolutely. It is opensv.forums. I should know this, Farah.
It probably just comes up without you having to tap.
It does. I will get it to you.
Sounds good. Well, and again, it's put on by Open Silicon Valley. It's taking place on Saturday, May 10th at the Computer History Museum right here in the heart of the Silicon Valley in Mountain View, California. And again, it's an all-day event. You mentioned the Halva Puri. I mean, my goodness, that in and of itself is reason to come.
Really, it is.
Right. But again, I'm so excited not just to be there, but just to see, all the things that come up that day. And again, in the days, the months, the years that follow. And the last thing I'm going to ask you, are you going to do this again as far as you personally, professionally?
That is a great question, and you're not the only one asking me right now. I am considering it, but I haven't decided yet.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed, because certainly what you have spearheaded to put together this time around is nothing short of phenomenal. So really looking forward to it. And Zainab, it's always a pleasure to be in conversation with you. And today was no different. And I'm glad we had a little bit more time to do just that. And you know what? I'm going to ask you one last question. I always love to close on this with my Heartistry guests, which is actually this concept of Heartistry. So it's obviously the word heart and artistry put together. And for me, that is speaking, as I mentioned, I believe earlier, with individuals who are bringing a passion, compassion, and commitment to whatever they're doing, income generating or not. And I'm always curious to know, you've mentioned that you've listened to some of our previous episodes. So whether it's when you're listening to them, you saw this word for the first time, or as I'm speaking about it now, what, if anything, Heartistry invokes for you?
My favorite question of the day. So when I think of Heartistry, and I'm a big, big user of podcasts, listener, consumer of podcasts, and I've probably got 12 that I listen to regularly. Heartistry is up there, and it has
Oh.
been for over a year. And I'd say what it does better than all my other podcasts, whether they're about politics or business or arts or science or what have you, yours really is about heart. Like when I want to feel inspired, when I want to feel calm, and I want to feel something that's better than everything else out there, something that is real and authentic, I come to your podcast. Heartistry is probably the only one out of all the dozens that I listen to that gives me that actual sense of wow, energy and inspiration and calm. I don't think there's anyone else out there, and it has a lot to do with you. And so I have to just tell you, this has been such an honor for me. I mean, again, we've known each other for a while, but to be on this platform with you on a podcast that I have personally enjoyed for so long means the world to me.
Oh, thank you for those kind words. And throughout much of what you were just saying, I hope you realize you were holding up a mirror to yourself. And that this conversation will fall exactly in that beautiful category you described. And yes, I mean, you really are an inspiration in the various ways I see you traverse your personal and professional and peripheral extensions of that. It's again, nothing short of inspirational. So thank you for all that you're doing, all that you are, and of course, for your time today on Heartistry.
Thank you, Farah. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.